This episode is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is the #1 tool for all podcasters. You can record high-fidelity audio between remote locations and get studio-quality sound. Go to Zencastr.com and use coupon code THATENTERTAINS for 20% off for 3 months or 20% off an annual plan.
This is a That's Entertainment podcast.
Awesome.
Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. That was awesome. You guys are awesome.
No,
You're awesome.
no.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. And here we are, a new week ahead of us. Looks like we went from what I was planning on being an entire week of awesome and then being caught up to being a couple random days here and there throughout the month of January of being awesome. But we're getting some consecutive days in. We got... I think 2 days worth of podcasting last week, and here we are this week. We're going to drop a couple episodes throughout the week. I'm really excited about this week's episodes. We got a couple good ones. Starting things off this week is my amazing conversation with Chad Archibald, the director of the Heretics and other horror films that you should be watching right now. Before we get into that, though, I have a couple things I want to talk about, and of course, that is the 2019 Everything is Awesome Headstrong Comedy Festival and Fundraiser coming at you on January 27th from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. across 4 different venues throughout the city of Philadelphia. We're going to be taking over parts of Tattooed Mom. We're going to be taking over parts of South Street Cinema. We're going to be taking over parts of Milk Boy South Street. And we're going to be going just a quick 15-minute car ride to 17th and Fairmont at Thirsty Dice and taking over a corner there. Guys, I'm super excited for this festival. This is the 3rd year I've put this together. And normally it's just a one-day festival like it is this year, but only at one venue with 4 or 5 podcasts. Maybe 5 or 6 podcasts. This year, we have expanded to 24 podcasts. And while maybe we don't need 4 venues for that, we do need 4 venues to also include 20-plus comedians and improvisers. I am so thankful and so stressed, for sure, but like really proud of this festival that we put together. I'm super excited to see what comes of it in 13 days from now, from when we're recording this. We just sat down and tested equipment that we're going to be supplying at South Street Cinema, where Josh from Victims and Villains is going to be running things for me. And this week we'll be getting more equipment and testing it for Tattooed Moms, where I'll be running things. We have our good buddy, Mr. Lauren Biddle, from the Just Grubbin podcast, who is going to be running things at Milk Boy South Street for me. And then we have the one, the only, Mr. David Steele from A Quest for Magic and Steel and the Steel Empire, who's going to be running things at Thirsty Dice. We have so many great shows like Everything is Awesome, Just Grubbin, Party of One podcast, A Quest for Magic and Steel, Victims and Villains, I Like to Movie, the Ghouls Next Door, Full Belly Laughs, if I didn't say that already, Pod of Love, Heart Points Pod, Kid Flicks, My Gay Agenda, just to name a few podcasts. Brian Durkin, Adam Nutter, Rachel Fogletto, Abby Rosenquist, just to name a couple comedians that are going to be at the festival. Guys, I'm so excited. This festival is free. That's a key thing to remember. This is a free, funny festival, free for nothing. And we're getting together to raise money for the Headstrong Foundation. So please, 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 I know you're going to be getting knocked over the head with it for the next couple episodes about this, but please, please, please head to festival.awesomepodcast.com and take a look at what's going on at the festival. Take a look at our great sponsors, and very more importantly, take a look at headstrong.org to learn more about Headstrong. They are an organization based right out of here in Philadelphia that takes a good look at the families that are affected by cancer, and they support them with emotional support, financial support, and residential support. All things that families, there's just one less thing that families have to worry about when they come to Philadelphia for treatment. Philadelphia, home to, I believe, one of the first hospitals, if not the first hospital here in the United States, and is home to UPenn, a big teaching school here. They take a lot of these cancer cases that can't be solved anywhere else, and they treat patients there, and Headstrong Foundation helps families there. Our goal is to hit $500. We're already almost halfway there. $229, 45% of the way there. We're very close to 50%. I would love to hit that in the next day or two. But I really would love to hit 100% before the festival even starts. And I'll tell you why. Because that proves to Headstrong that we're serious. We're there to make money for them, to raise money for them so that they can keep on supporting families in the greater Philadelphia area that are affected by cancer. And we can raise $500 before then, before the 27th. Everything that we raise at the festival is just gravy, and it's just extra than what they were looking for. And then next year we can doing something even bigger than what we did this year. I'm always looking to grow. This was a big growth spurt for us. So thank you guys for if you're going to be there as an entertainer, thank you so much. If you're going to be there to support, thank you so much. From 12 to 9 p.m. Across 4 different venues. Everything is Awesome. We'll be performing at 4 p.m. at Tattooed Moms. Come check us out. It'll be Mike and I. We'll play some games. We'll hang out. Maybe we'll have some giveaways. Abby Rosenquist will be there to do some stand-up and to talk about her life as a comedian and how she came through Philadelphia and won Philly's Funniest. I think back in 2017. So come listen to that conversation, listen to her tell some jokes. We're working on our next guest as we speak. But let's get to this week's show, shall we? This week we sit down and chat with Mr. Chad Archibald. He is the director of the Heretics, which was, as you hear us talk in the episode, was around the corner from being released. However, it was released about 2 months ago now at this point. But it's a great movie. I sat down and watched it. It is Heretics is fantastic. It was not what I was expecting, and maybe it was at the same time, but this is the exact type of horror movie Chad and I sit down and talk about in our conversation here, where you're not going to care who's in the movie. You're going to love this story. You're going to love the horror in it, and you are going to know and learn Chad's name here, Chad Archibald. And that's the name you're going to look for. And you're going to look for more and more horror movies by this guy. And when you pick up a movie that you're like, oh, this has an interesting cover, and you're going to pick it up, and it's going to say Chad Archibald's name on it, you are going to watch that movie because his name is on it. He's the director. We talk about how he got into filmmaking. We talk about horror movies and why he got into horror. We talk a little bit about my horror experience, of course, as well. The differences between indie and major. And we talk about got fascinating stories from the set of Heretic, including the building of a cabin, the use of the broken down Winnebago, and much, much more on this week's episode of Everything is Awesome. Without further ado, let's kick it over to Chad and Kev so they can get on with their conversation about horror movies, indie filmmaking, and so much more right here on the That's Entertainment Podcast Network at thatentertains.com/network, and of course, awesomepodcast.com.
Yeah, it's tricky out here. We're out on a writing trip right now. So me and Cody, the other owner of Black Fawn Films, we go away probably once a month to just develop ideas, like concepts for movies and stuff like that. So we, go and rent a cottage somewhere, like in the middle of nowhere, where there's no distractions, and we just cover the walls in paper and come up with movie ideas. And that's kind of, where our creative process works. But at the same time, we try to get to places where there's not great reception and, not much internet, so that we can stay focused. But
so where are you holed up? Like whereabouts in the great unknown?
Right now, we're just outside of Collingwood.
Okay.
And that's like southern Ontario, but like it's kind of cottage country.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, is that because you're originally from Canada, right?
Yeah.
And is that where you still spend most of your time in the Great White North there?
Yeah, so I live in Toronto.
Okay. Oh, so your fellow East Coast normally is where you're at. Is Toronto? That is East Coast, right? I'm from Philadelphia, so like it's been years since I've been up to Canada. So I think Toronto is pretty much just a little, like, about an hour or two north of Niagara Falls, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
So it's like right near Buffalo.
Yes. Okay. So, and this is another weird for me. Like my interviews, because I have a day job. Because surprise, podcast doesn't pay bills. Normally I do them like super late at night, so which is fine because like I'm a night owl anyway. So normally I'm doing interviews like up until about 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's usually works out because a lot of people I talk to end up being, usually some of them are fellow podcasters, but I do tend to get a lot of people in the film industry or the TV industry in Hollywood, I guess, and a lot of them are West Coast as well. So that usually works out to my benefit when they're able to do night interviews because it's not super late for them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is I actually just had a weird, because the Heretics is coming out and we're doing a press for it right now. I kind of like allocated today to like try to book everything through the day. Sort of like we read like the work and meetings and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get to Heretics in our discussion today. I had a chance to view a screener of it, and it is. I'll save it for later when we talk about that whole movie, but. I'll say impressed. We'll start with that. That's a little teaser.
Excellent. Good.
So when did you get the bug to what do you consider yourself, a writer, director, or is it just the more general filmmaker?
My ultimate goal, but yeah, I mean at the same time it's like me and Cody like to come up with movie ideas as well. Like most of the films that we've done, pretty much all the films that we've done, are films that we've kind of come up with ourselves and right around the board and give it good.
Ooh, you are breaking up real bad right now. I can't hear anything you're saying.
Yeah. I get it. And hopefully it's a good talk. Can you hear me at all?
Now I think I hear you. Now I hear you.
Okay. Yeah, if it breaks up again, I'll be stopped in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
It's just this spot where,
all right, so I missed a lot of that. So I know you said you and Cody go up and come up with a bunch of ideas, and I missed like the origin point. So when was it that you decided that you wanted to write and direct?
Originally, I went to school for multimedia design for graphic design and websites and stuff like that. I was like 2001 maybe, and then just had this idea to make a movie one day, me and a buddy, and we just went out and we started writing a script. We had no idea how to write a script. We've actually picked up Screenwriter for Dummies, that yellow book.
Yes,
and then we just sat down and, for a couple of weeks just wrote this, I don't know, it's like 130 pages or something. It was a huge, long script. And then we went out and we were making this movie. We were going to make it, in a week or something like that. And it took years. We went and we casted all of our buddies in it. just basically our best looking friends that we had in Guelph, because no one was making movies back then. Like nowadays, it's like you can't go anywhere without people making movies. It's so accessible, right?
Yeah.
But back then, no one had even made a movie in Guelph before, so it was, and there was no real internet. There's no YouTube. There's nothing like that. So it's just us kind of in like bookstores trying to figure out how the hell you make a movie. And then we went out and we casted Brian Barrett, who's actually in the Heretics as well. He was just like our best looking friend that was cool with coming out and trying to be an actor. He hadn't really acted in anything before that. So he came out. We made the movie. It took forever. We made every mistake in the book. Mm-hmm. And eventually it got done and we sold it to Lionsgate and Atlantis. But when I say like we made every mistake in the book, like it was like we did everything wrong. Like we never even had a boom mic on set. Like we had on-camera audio, and we just didn't know any better, Well, so we actually had to go and like build a sound booth in like my townhouse basement that we were all living in, and we had to re-record every piece of dialogue, every like movement, every clothing movement, every sound that's in that movie. It's called Desperate Souls. Was created in that sound room. So that took about 8 months.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so it sounds like you almost had to, not quite double, but almost double the amount of work but to redo the sound.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I learned so much from that movie just because it's like every step was like, okay, what's next? Oh, how do you do that? I guess let's figure it out. When we recorded all that stuff, we were recording it in like a software called like Vegas Video. It was like not meant for audio recording, like not meant to like mix a movie in. Like we just did it all ourselves, just like the wrong tools for the job and everything, and we just struggled through it until it was all done. But yeah, then after that, continued making movies. We were like, wow, it's like you can actually do this and maybe make a career of it. Mm-hmm. And we struggled for a long time. Just doing films, we were like driven by the fact that we just loved doing it so much. And we did music videos and stuff like that. I think I've done 150 music videos now.
Oh, wow.
But we just do those because they help pay our rent. Mm-hmm. But also like we get to try out new techniques and stuff, and it's always really exciting. And all of a sudden it's like our stuff was playing on Much Music and like MTV and stuff, and it was exciting times for sure. And then just carried on from there, and I don't know, 15 years later, we're still making movies.
Yeah, and it's now. Was there anything or any reason that because it looks like based off of at least IMDb that you kind of hang towards the horror genre? Was that because of like ease of making the movies in that genre, or is that like just like a love that you have?
It's kind of like a happy accident, I think. Like, I love horror movies. I've always loved horror movies. I was that weird kid whose parents let them watch horror movies, and other parents would call my parents and yell at them and be like, your son showed my son this movie and blah, 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 and how old is he? And, it was always, something that they were okay with me doing for whatever reason. So I loved watching horror movies growing up, and the first movie that we did was a horror movie. And I love doing them because they're just so much fun. And there's so much, like, I love coming on these writing trips and, like, just coming up with horror movie ideas because it's just, like, you can do anything. Mm-hmm. Like, literally nothing is too crazy. It doesn't have to be in reality. It could be space. It could be, underground at, like, 1,000 years from now or 1,000 years ago, It's like, you can really do anything. In this world, people can fly. I don't know. Sure.
Yeah.
It's like you're kind of creating something with no rules. And I'm really ingrained in the horror community as well. It's like we go to conventions. We have Black Fawn Distribution as well, which releases films. Mm-hmm. And we travel around to conventions and stuff and do signings and, meet tons of horror fans, and a lot of them are horror conventions. And I just think that they're like the best people in the world. They're just like the family of people that we've kind of met over the years doing that. I just like, if I was ever had an issue in life, it's like, I know they would be there to support it. And like, I only ever see them at conventions really, they're just, really good people. no egos, and they just, you know, love the genre and love the movies and stuff. So, I mean, it's really fun making these movies and actually going out and, you know, sitting in the theater and like watching people's reactions to it, you know, cheer and you know, clap and jump at scares. And, you know, it's just fun. I think it's just a fun genre to make movies in.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you know, we are doing, you know, a lot of lower budget movies without big, huge names in it. So, you know, the great thing about horror is that whenever people pick up a horror movie or, you know, find a horror movie to watch, you know, they read the synopsis, and it's not as much about who's in it as like, what's the story, you know, like what's the hook, what's your, you know, ooh, this movie like sounds scary or whatever, right? It's like when you pick up like a comedy,
Yeah.
it's like, they look at who's in it.
Yes.
It's like, I like those people because they're funny. It's a Will Ferrell movie and I'll watch it because it's Will Ferrell, but you know.
Yeah, and horror is something that, like, when I was a kid, I was like not a fan of. Whenever I had friends, I was the opposite of you. Whenever I had friends that would throw on like the Friday movies or the Jason movies or the Krueger movies or whatever, those movies, I always would be like, all right, I'm gonna go home now. Like that's and
You ran from them.
yeah, and this is whenever I get to talk about horror, I like to bring this up because it's so ridiculous. But one of the first things that like scared the crap out of me, my parents, I want to say I was like maybe 5 years old when my parents showed me, which I don't consider this a horror movie, but Beetlejuice. And the one thing I remember is when he turns into the snake, like the rail snake or whatever, and that I had nightmares from that, and that may have been what turned me off to horror movies until I guess it was like the early 90s, mid 90s maybe, when Scream came out. Like that's the generation of horror movies I kind of started weaning myself on, and I have only recently, at the age of 34, started to go back and watch some of the like more classic stuff like The Thing, and really that's the only like real classic that I've gone back to go and watch. I have a laundry list that I need to go do, especially since I want to go see the new Halloween movie. I have to go see the original. But to your point, is I like never once when I pick up a horror movie, at least as an adult now, I never look to see, at most, I will maybe look to see who the director is versus the cast. Because the cast seems like, not that they're not important, because obviously they help make the movie good with their talent, but it's always about the story and then like the person telling that story. At least for me, when I pick that up. And even if it's like, I'm not always looking for like John Carpenter movie, but like I like to see, oh man, that's a name that I know, like Sam Raimi. Whenever I find like a horror movie and I find out that it was a Sam Raimi movie, somehow I'm like more delighted.
Yeah. And that's really it. It's like, you know, that's why I think horror is so great. It's like, you know, it's so, like, a lot of people on the other side look at horror and go, ooh, but it's like, when I look at horror, I'm like, oh, it's like an art form.
Yes.
Like, these are artists, like real artists. Creating like content that's like special and beautiful and like amazing feats of like cinematography. It's like that's what I look at horror as.
Well, and it seems like the genre that unless you're getting like a big studio budget for it, it's almost a genre that's meant to be experimental, from makeup to how you shoot the film.
Yeah. It is. It's, you know, about creating a mood and a vibe and suspense, and like, you know, those things aren't easy to do. Like I definitely, like, I'm still figuring it out now. You know, I've directed 9 films, and I'm like, you know, still consider myself a aspiring filmmaker, learning how to figure this all out. You know, it's something that's just, you know, you can always keep learning at, and you can always keep growing at, and, you know, every movie's different, and everything's, you know, you learn so much as you go, and what works and what doesn't work, and, you know, it's just it's a journey.
Well, yeah, and I think it's good. Like when you get to the point where you feel like you're still not learning, it's you got to figure something out how to switch it. Like I've been podcasting for over 11 years now, and I still screw up. I'm still learning how to do things in podcasting because it's you should. I feel like when you get to a point of whatever it is you like to do, or that you do for a living, even like if you get to the point where you're no longer learning and you're like, then you need to switch something up because the only way you're going to get even better is to keep on learning and evolving.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I always find it funny when we, you see like a filmmaker that kind of comes on and it's like, this is my first movie and this is my vision and this is how it's got to be. And this is like, I think, it's important to collaborate with people.
Yes.
And, our set is like, there's everyone from the cast to, the grips. It's like, if someone has a good idea to help something, it's like, they always listen to it. Mm-hmm. Because I think, it's like, there's so many different ways to do things. There's no right way to do it. And there's like what you want to try to achieve and stuff like that. But I mean, sometimes that doesn't work, or sometimes it's in your head. And when you sit down and like look at it through a monitor, you go, oh damn, that doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Well, and it's easy to say like, oh, the director, that's the director's film, but really like, and I'm a big Kevin Smith fan, and one of the things that I really like that he says about his sets is that like he's one in a cog of a whole bunch of different filmmakers putting together a movie. Like and when I hear people that are like that, and it sounds like you kind of have share that mindset where it's not about you, it's about the whole cast and crew making something unique and a great story and maybe a gory story or whatever it is you're trying to put out there in the world. You realize that it's not just about you and your vision. It's open to interpretation.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, you'll find like whenever I'm talking about filmmaking or projects, they're always our projects and we're always doing this and this is what we did and this is what we learned. It's like, I always say we just because I feel like guilty saying I.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, sure, I directed these movies because my name's on them, but like, there are movies, we made them. It's a village of people who actually put the effort in to make these things, and it is about I'm lucky enough that a lot of my great friends have really learned the trades and like learned how to kind of be great storytellers or production designers or cinematographers, and the majority of our films are like the same crew. It's like Jeff Mahar shot everything that we've done almost for the last couple of years, and Chris Giroux produced like our last 8 films or whatever, 9 films, and Steph Copeland, she scored them all. It's like, and a lot of the crew is like the same crew that we always use. It's and they bring so much, and it's like I'm lucky enough that I'm surrounded by all these talented people that when we do make one of these things, it's like everyone brings everything they have, and they put so much effort into it that it's always funny to me that it's like, it's the director's film. It's like, oh man, it's like, I'd be nothing without these people.
Yeah. And it's, I think that shows in people's work when you can see a film or a television show or something where it was more of a dictatorship versus a democracy of everyone kind of pulling their ideas together. It shows in that final product.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's it obviously changes so much. Part of the reason why I love doing independent films is that it's so small, and it's so like your set can look to be. Mm-hmm. It's like once you get to a certain point where there's like unions and union crews and like it's so big that it's monster. It's like you lose a lot of that kind of control. Like it starts turning into like there's too many people here. This needs to be formatted and regimented. Like it needs to be like clockwork, and like a lot of the personalities taken out of it, and it does fall more on your direct creative team, like your director who's like in a tent, mm-hmm. and there's like a ton of extras everywhere, and the AD's like, what would you like next, or or ma'am, it's like as productions get bigger, it does get trickier, And I know that, you know, it has to kind of change like that, but that's why I love doing indie films, because it's still like, you know, there's days we're on set where it's like we stop and we're like, this scene's not working. We kind of sit there and Cody comes over and G comes over and, you know, Jeff, and, you know, we're basically just standing in the room with the cast and everyone being like, I think maybe if we pull it over here and that, you know, we do a push in like this, it's like, and it's like, oh, we're like over here, like there's actually a hole that we could do in the wall here. It could go right through the wall. It's like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. You know?
Now,
you don't see that on major movies.
Yeah, I was going to ask do you have any experience like the opposite of that experience? Have you worked on anything with a bigger budget that would that made you feel like you were pigeonholed into anything?
I mean, every time we do a lot of non-union films, like the Heretics was a non-union film, it was non-union cast. You know, we can shoot 1 hour for the day, or we can shoot 14 hours for the day, you know, depending on, you know, how long everyone wants to stay or what we're all feeling like. I definitely, like, you know, even doing our new movie, I'll Take Your Dead, it was definitely trickier as a union film. So it's like, you stop at like 10 hours with some of the cast, and it's like, if it's like 10 hours and 1 minute, that just costs you $3,000.
Oh, wow.
You know?
Wow.
So it's like, it's that, and you can't say like, are you guys cool? Just like sticking around for another 10 minutes and the scene will be so much better if we can get one more angle over here. And like, you know, you can't even say that because they'd be like, yeah, sure. And you never know if they're going to go to their agent or just sign their sheet different. And you can't, it's not an agree thing. It's a union thing. There is no breaking the rules with it, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously people do all the time and whatever, but it's still like, you know, it gets to the point where it's like, man, like another 15 minutes here and this scene will be light years better than it is now, but I can't ask for that and we can't afford to do it. So unfortunately, we're going to have to, you know, live in this moment on a wide because we have no coverage there, or come back tomorrow and have something else sacrificed, you know? It's definitely like there's this strategy of, it is like a big giant puzzle that you're kind of putting together. Whereas like in a non-union movie, like the Heretics, it was like, we're all alone in a cabin and we're shooting and we're not done yet. And we say, is everyone cool staying around for like another 15 minutes? We'll get some pizzas flown in, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, everyone's like, go. Or someone's like, I got to go, blah, blah, blah. It's like, absolutely. All right, you head out. If, you know, if anybody else needs to go or whatever, that's totally no problem. Or sometimes we even say, all right, everyone's wrapped except, you know, these two actors. And, you know, we'll just have like a skeleton crew that kind of keeps shooting some little bit of coverage or whatever at the end. And, you know, then all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, like this scene worked out great. Like we killed this because we had that extra 15 minutes, where in the union world, unfortunately, it's like, you know, there's not that leeway.
Yeah, it almost sounds like more of a job when it's a union gig.
Sure. It really does. And I mean, yeah, like I'll Take Your Dead. I love shooting, and the movie turned out awesome. I'm super proud of it. It's just in festivals now, and it's getting such an awesome response. It's so different than all the other films that we've done. It's horror, but it's more of like a crime thriller, I guess. But it's definitely cross genres, and I'm super proud of it. But I mean, like shooting that movie and shooting the Heretics was like completely different. You know. Yeah. There's trailers on set, and like, you know, we have like, I don't know, like 6 trailers around this house as we're like, you know, shooting. And inside the house, it's like, you know, it's just chaos because there's like 35, 40 people in there trying to kind of move around the sets in between the rooms and stuff. Like we always joked, it was like I'd be behind the monitor and things would start getting too crazy and people were moving, things were starting to fall, and I'd always go, Mother! It's like the movie Mother. It feels like that. Where it's like, have you seen Mother?
I have not. I've been told that was a mistake.
Yeah. So basically, it's like watching something go, hey, what's going on here? Oh God, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. Oh God, chaos, and it just keeps building, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's times it's like that was our code word. If we said Mother, it's like everyone would go, okay, calm down, all right, slow down, everyone stop moving so quickly. Let's figure this out. We're in a big knot. Well, you know, so it's you know, they both have their challenges though. You know? Also, you know, we were shooting the Heretics. We had a very, very small budget, and we're out in the middle of a field that we built this cabin in. Like it's like a legit cabin in the woods. So, and you know, the cast is in a gutted old Winnebago and like doing makeup with like, you know, running off a generator with like no water, you know. It's or water from like a jug or whatever, but it's like, you know, there's challenges involved there too when you don't have the funds to do things
All right,
nice and comfortable.
Let's talk Heretics, since that is going to be, at the time of this recording, released in about a week and a half, November 6th. It's going to be available on what, video on demand?
Yeah. I should actually know the details a little bit better. It's being released through Uncorked.
Yes.
But I believe it's on video on demand and DVD Blu-ray.
Okay. Yeah, I know video on demand is what my notes in front of me say. I probably could have taken better notes, but
I'm gonna figure that out right after this phone call.
but we'll have for sure in the show notes. You'll see more information about when the movie's released. And so you brought up so the cabin, which, you know, we're not going to get into spoiler territory, but it's not, I think, a spoiler to say it's a horror movie with a cabin. That's pretty stock, I think. You guys had to make that from scratch, or did you rent a cabin?
No, we actually went out there, and again, we had a pretty low budget, and we went everywhere looking for a cabin in the woods that we could shoot at. It was on someone's property that, you know, had a house near it that, you know, had washrooms and, you know, like a bit of a home base. And we couldn't find anything that really worked right. And I mean, that's kind of the problem sometimes with, you know, when you're writing something. You sit there and you picture the layout of a building or a house or whatever, and it's not until you like sit down and like draw it out that you go, oh wow, nothing's made like that. Like that's like people don't make places like that. Like it's not correct, you know. So, you know, with this we were like, okay, we're not really finding anywhere that works great. And I went out with a production designer just one day. We were like, let's go into the woods or whatever, and we'll look around. And we were looking for like wooded areas that we could kind of, you know, shoot some stuff in potentially. They were out kind of near Erin, Ontario. My sister lives out there, so it's kind of like back in the bush way behind her place. And we were walking through there and we stopped and we're like, man, this would be perfect if there was just a cabin right here. And then we joked about making one, and we're like, yeah, we just like we can't afford it. We have like $800 to rent this cabin. Like we're not going to build a full cabin for $800. Yeah. And he was like, well, what we could do is, and he had this idea that, you know, woods, like the material alone, is just such a huge cost. So he had this idea that if we went out and we went to construction sites and, you know, some of the building supply stores and stuff like that, and we asked them for all their wooden skids, like all the skids that, you know, they generally pay people to go take them away because they have so many of them. That's just what they transport all of their stuff in, right? Yeah. So we go and we ask them if we can just have their skids, and then, you know, Vince Moskowitz, our production designer, is like, I'll sit with Jamie and whatever, and we'll just sawzall through all the nails, and we'll just break apart all these skids, and then it's free wood. And I was like, that's absolutely insane, dude. Like, we were never, that will take forever, and it's like, no, it's just not going to work. And he was like, I'll make it work. And he's crazy. I love Vince. He's like the best. So he had this idea, and he's like, you trust me, we'll make this work. And I was like, still the rest of the wood, you know, it's still, you know, it's still going to be too expensive. And, you know, we're also in the middle of nowhere. So like, you know, if I go back and tell like Cody and Chris Giroux, the producers, that we're going to build this cabin in the middle of the woods, like way back in the bush, they're going to be like, I hate you, Chad. So anyways, we had this idea, and then we had the other idea. We did a movie years ago called The DROWNSMAN, and we built a set way up in Mount Forest and on an apple orchard, and there's a skid of like 2x3s and 2x4s there that we never used, and we kind of just like said, like, you know, if he wants to keep them as a, you know, farmer there, he was like, yeah, you know what, fine, I'll just keep these here, whatever. So we ended up calling him up and saying, do you still have that wood? And he's like, yeah. And we're like, do you want it off your property? And he's like, sure. We gave him a little bit of money for it, but like, you know, a fraction of whatever, because it's all like not rotting, but it's like it's weathered, very weathered. It's been out there for like 2 winters now. So we went out there, picked up all that wood, and started cutting apart these these skids, and we would go out every weekend with a truck full of skids and this wood, and a bunch of volunteers basically, and we just built that cabin in the middle of nowhere. So we built it like there was nothing there at the start. We built the whole thing for $800.
That's amazing.
And it's still there right now. Like giant pentagram on the floor, blood stains. I want to put a camera up and like wait for someone to like go find it.
Oh my God.
Because it's way back in the bush though. But it's awesome. Like it's hardy. Like when you walk, like if you walked up to it right now, it's like it's still got a fireplace in it, a functioning fireplace and everything. It's like I can put it on Airbnb.
Oh wow, that's fun.
Rustic, no plumbing, cabin in the woods.
Oh wow, that's. I mean, and see, I feel like that is even where it maybe is easier to do that on a I guess a union budget or a bigger budget. That kind of story, I think it makes the whole experience and whether, for the cast and the filmmakers and stuff, but also for like the fans, like, I'm most genre fans love to know all the nitty gritty of how their favorite thing is made. And that's indie. That is indie. That's awesome.
Well, that's what's great about it too, is that like, even on the build, like I just went on Facebook and I said, hey, anybody want to come out to the woods this weekend and build a cabin with me? And like every weekend I had 10 people there because they were just like, cool, I love building shit, and like building a crazy old cabin that doesn't need to be perfect. It's like, it's crazy how fast it moves when it doesn't need to be perfect,
Yeah.
And it's like so you walk up there and it's like, okay, it's a frame of something, and whenever you leave, you're like, no, it's got walls and half a roof now. Like, that's exciting. So we had like a ton of people who came up, every weekend just to build it, and we'd have a fire pit there. We'd like camp out. Sometimes we actually stayed at the cabin, like once it was, semi put together. And it was, we'd have a little fire and we'd cook chicken and stuff on it. And it was like out in the woods. Like it was great. And like I love doing it and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people out there that love doing it too and just don't actually have an opportunity to do it. So we had a lot of fun.
And were the people that came out and had like volunteered their time, were they all like people that you've made connections with throughout the years of going to horror conventions and stuff?
Some of them are, absolutely. Some of them are. Some of them are just like, friends that I have in Guelph that I grew up with. Some of them are like, there's people that I hadn't seen in a while. There's people from Toronto who are like, I never get out of the city. I'd love to go in the country and like build something. They came all the way, drove an hour and a half to come out for the weekend and just help out,
That's all. Again, that's such a neat story for the Heretics, and you also mentioned the Winnebago being used as like a makeup trailer. Is that the same thing, the same Winnebago in the movie?
Yeah, absolutely. We had to kick out all the makeup people, and then we had to film it as well.
Now, was that like a happy accident? It's like, oh, we can use this as a makeup trailer, or did you get the trailer to be used as for crew and say, oh, we can use this for the film too?
It was actually on the property already. And it was just like a gutted trailer. I guess what had happened was the people who owned it, someone in their family was in a band and they were planning on going on a trip across Canada touring with this Winnebago. And, they got it, they were like, we're going to gut the whole thing and then redo it inside. And they gutted the whole thing and then tried to get it safetied so that they could drive it to like another area. And they were like, no, you've taken out like the foundation of it. It's not roadworthy anymore. So they just like left it there, gutted. So, we were like, I wonder if we can actually just tow that out to like near the forest and use that as like at least a bit of a home base. And they said, cool. And then, while we were in there, we were like, it'd be pretty sweet if Thomas actually like had this old Winnebago, but it didn't really drive. It didn't drive. So we had boosted it one day and we got a shot of it driving down the road that's in the movie. Yeah. And then it got to the end of the road. It was an old country road that no one ever uses. It's like right where the forest was. Yeah. And it got to the end of the road and died and just would not start again. So it's like I had actually went with my truck and some ratchet straps and towed it back to like the forest. So we got that one shot of it driving and that's it.
Wow. I mean, Good thing you got it on take one, I guess.
Yeah. And then when we're filming her waking up in the trailer,
Yes.
the trailer's not actually moving. We just have a bunch of, it's this creation that Jeff Mahar makes for, like, it's called poor man's process, when you're not actually driving a vehicle, but you want it to look like it is.
Yeah.
So, there's a couple people jumping on the bumper to kind of rock it a little bit, and then he creates these things from the dollar store. They're like hula hoops and a bunch of like cardboard, and he just creates all these slits that are they spin on like a thing. So it's like there's a light and these things are spinning around it, and it's just creating shadows like you're driving through a forest.
That's
movie magic.
Yeah, that's cool. That's so neat. I wish I had talent. Like, I wish I could do more than talk on a microphone, because that is like I would never think of that at all. To like, I would be like, I guess we have to go get a new Winnebago or a new used one.
We've become pretty resourceful. We've done a lot of these kind of movies that are driven on problem solving.
Well, and it sounds like I don't know if maybe all indie is this way, but I think like almost like horror indie films kind of make you resourceful, because there's elements of horror where it would be nice if we had a ton of money to do this, but we have to not spend all this money, so let's find another cool way to do it, whether it's from making a Winnebago drive or make it look like it's driving to any kind of horror special effect. Is there anything in either the Heretics or any of the films you've done where you're like, oh man, we planned on doing this, but we don't have enough money, so we had to do this resourceful thing that ended up being better?
Yeah, I feel like that's every one of our movies. Literally. It's funny because that's why like me and Cody come up with the treatments and the concepts for the movies, because we know for these ones specifically that we've been doing with Breakthrough, we know what the budgets are. They're small, and if we find a script that someone has written that's amazing, we're probably going to have to bring it in and cut out stuff that's just not achievable on our budget, and then rework that. Whereas like me and Cody, when we're creating a concept, we're like, we create it from the point of like, what can we actually pull off well? What resources do we have? How can we incorporate that into the story? And then we kind of like design it that way, so that whenever we go into production, it's like we know kind of what we can pull off and what we can't. We did a movie years ago called The DROWNSMAN, and it was like a feat of, it was the craziest film that we've ever done. It was like in the middle of this apple orchard. It was a water-based movie. It's about like, the DROWNSMAN is like, the idea behind him is like, basically if you spilt water on the floor, he could reach up out of the puddle and drag you into the puddle, and you would come out of this tub in his like basement, and there's like all these aquariums and pipes everywhere and water dripping, and like there's all these kind of like water torture things that you kind of have to suffer through in this thing. So I mean, there's tons of water. It's like the most difficult thing to deal with ever. Like when you get into filmmaking, it's like people say, it's like don't film with animals, kids, or water. It's like just impossible to control. So it was a challenge, and I mean, I'm so proud of that film, just because the feats that we had done. That was Vince Moskowitz again, who we built the set with, and same idea. We went out and we built this set with a lot of people who were just like, cool, I'll come and help. But it was a huge set. There was like giant holes underneath it. So we had an excavator dig a bunch of holes, which was, again, it's like a Mormon dude down the street from the farm that charged us $60 in cash to like come and dig a bunch of holes with his excavator, right? And then we designed the whole set on top of that, and it was that movie was it was full of improvising and problem solving. Every day it was a new issue of like, how we're going to do this. I also never had running water, so we had to heat the water and get it out to the set, which has no insulation or anything. It's in the middle of a field, and it's like, and heating water is so difficult, and keeping it hot is so difficult. It's like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like a documentary about that movie would be more popular than the movie was.
Well,
and the movies are great, but it's just like, I just wish I had that stuff documented, because, man, I've never seen so many people pull together to make something.
Yeah.
Like,
that is intriguing. Like you should have seen my face when you said, "Yeah, we didn't have running water on this movie called The DROWNSMAN, where we need water," and the gears are running in my head. That's what I love about, indie movies and I mean, I guess all movies. I like listening to. I've kind of grown out of listening to commentary tracks and tend to listen to more like long form interviews like this, where the filmmaker or the actor, whoever, tells the story that way versus trying to pay attention to the film and the commentary track at the same time. But I love. Story, like, I feel, and it seems more at home on an indie film than it does like a big blockbuster. But I guess you can hear them on blockbusters too. But yeah, I love watching indie movies and hearing the backstories to those movies, because again, I mean, like you said, it's almost as interesting, if not more interesting, than the movie itself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny, we do panels all the time for horror conventions and fan expos and Comic-Cons and stuff like that, and they're usually a bunch of people talking about filmmaking or the industry or whatever. And we had this panel that a bunch of us were on. It was all Black Fawn people, and they didn't really have a topic for it. So we said, we just came up with this idea. We're like, why don't we do like Black Fawn horror stories? We'll call it Black Fawn Horror Stories, and we'll just go and we'll just talk about crazy stories that we have on set and stuff. And it was the best panel we ever did. It was like the audience was roaring. People were so entertained. It was a packed house, and it was just so much fun reminiscing over some of these crazy stories and situations that we've been in and how we got out of them. And, it's doing indie film. It's like there are no rules, and it's like it's like rogue renegade filmmaking, and it's fun. Like, it's like, that's like the beauty of it, and that's like what kind of makes it so endearing and intriguing. It's like, I don't know, it's like every day is like a different adventure, whereas like once it gets unionized and all that stuff, it's like, no, this is work, and it's like, you're not being spontaneous anymore. It's like, this needs to be organized. It needs to be designed, because, there's a lot more money at stake. There's a lot more people here, and there's a lot, time is more important than everything. So it's, it's a challenge, the indie stuff. But I mean, the stories that we get out of it are so, so good. I'd like wait for the day that we do a documentary or something on all these films.
Well, and you mentioned, the conventions a few times, and that's like, this year 2018 was the year that I said I'm going to, break out of just doing my show live at a bar or whatever, and like try to do some convention stuff. And I've never gone to like an actual horror convention proper. I usually go to like in Philadelphia, they have like a couple local Comic-Cons, and then like some of the bigger ones that come through. And I've been lucky enough to go there and do some panels, and that, I mean, it sounds like you guys have a blast doing them. That is like a newfound love that spun out of podcasting was paneling and hosting panels and just sitting around talking about whatever with a huge crowd of people. And you've already said that the horror convention scene is like the community is just real close, and they're not a bunch of a-holes or anything. Whereas I think some comic book conventions can have a bit of the big a-holes in it, but for the most part, like the ones I go to, convention goers, like the actual fans that go to conventions, whether it's, for me, comic book or I go to a couple gaming conventions as well, like those communities are like just nothing but pleasant people who just enjoy hanging out and sharing stories like you guys did at that panel.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's like, it's not work for us. Like, I'm going to one this weekend in Niagara Falls, and I'm so pumped. Like, I love hanging out. We have a big wooden booth that we built, again, out of skids. It's a theme with us now. But yeah, we just hang out and we talk to people. Like, we just talk to people about movies and stuff. And it's like, a lot of these people, I'm like, I love talking to you guys, because like, you've seen the movies that I've seen, where it's like, you go in the general public and like, a lot of people haven't seen a lot of these films, and they don't care to really talk about them either. Or like, it's interesting talking to people and they've got their own stories of like, did you see the documentary on this filmmaker or this whatever? And, it's like these people are so knowledgeable. And it's just, love hearing their stories too.
We have about maybe 10 minutes left or so. So I do want to we've glossed over Heretics a little bit without giving spoilers away, so people can go see it and enjoy it. What's like the pitch to the Heretics that you have for everybody?
The pitch for the Heretics?
Yeah.
I wanted to do a cult movie. I love the idea. Like, I've always played with this idea of like, what if you, like, of all the different religions in the world, I have a stance on religion, and of all the different people out there trying to figure out what religion is right, it's like, what if someone, a cult, a church, whatever it is, actually found it? Like, what if, what would happen if one of these people or one of these, organizations actually went, oh, holy shit, this is real now. This is actually happening. So it's, that's kind of where the movie originated from. But I mean, it's about, family and betrayal and, belief. Like, a lot of it's about belief, it's about a guy who was part of a cult and they all killed themselves in hopes that, they were going to bring this entity to Earth. And it's just like, that stuff happens. It's crazy. And, he's spent years after that, thinking that all these people were crazy. And then, their prophecies start coming real and he has to go, oh man, that was real. Like, those were all real. This is actually happening right now. And I need to kind of decide where, my loyalty is going to lie.
Watching the movie was an experience, because I go into it not knowing necessarily what to expect, but then I want to do this in a way that doesn't spoil anything, so it's going to be pretty vague to the audience until they see the movie. But I feel like at least twice I was like, oh, okay, I see where this movie is going. And then suddenly it makes a huge left turn I wasn't expecting. And it was always a pleasant surprise when something was happening that I was like, there's no way that they're going to go in this. Like, there's no way they're going to go in this direction. There's no way that this thing is actually a thing. And it was a thing. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody until they watch the movie, but and horror movies can be a hard thing to get into, even for like, and I guess I'm not a super horror fan. I do enjoy watching them, and I do enjoy my like my B and C, and even the D movies are sometimes good. So it's a lot of times you go into a horror movie and not knowing what to expect, and sometimes you walk out disappointed, sometimes you walk out happy. After watching this, I was smiling ear to ear, because it was not, The Heretics is not a movie that I think you go into knowing one thing, and I think you come out knowing something else.
Yeah, and we were pumped about this movie because it does have twists and turns, and it's like, it's just more challenges as a filmmaker to be like, how can we get this? How can we achieve this throughout the movie that we're shooting completely out of order? Like, make sure that the twists and turns hit at the right time. Nothing's too obvious. Nothing's too, that there's surprises. And like, when the audience thinks you're going one way, how can we go somewhere else? How can we make sure that this movie stands out? It doesn't have star power. It doesn't have all that stuff. It's like, it's got to be a good film.
Yeah.
To get out there, it's like, what can we do to actually, like, create this journey for people? So it was it was so much fun doing that, and it was so much fun, like, even going through, like, there's always a lot of people, like, on the crew and stuff that haven't actually read through the whole script.
Okay.
So it was fun, like, as we're shooting stuff, being like, seeing them even be like, oh, no way, like, I get it, oh wow, cool. So
yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah, you guys did it great because again, horror movies can also fall into the trap of like being predictable, and for me personally, I don't think The Heretics is a predictable movie at all. Like you guys did. You guys did great. Like it's a movie that caught me off guard. I don't know, it was something that like it didn't fall on my radar at all until I got an email about it. And maybe I need to start paying attention to more indie flicks. I thought I was paying attention to these indie flicks, but I'm not, because when this fell on my radar, I was like, oh, I'll watch this. And then I was like, oh my God, I got to talk to the guy that made this movie because this is awesome. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Whatever that means to anybody else, I go out there and find out where you can watch it. We'll have some stuff in the show notes where you can watch The Heretics, which will be available November 6th, at least on video on demand and probably on Blu-ray and DVD, you said?
Absolutely. And if it's not, that you can always check out Black Fawn Distribution for the Canadian releases and import. But Uncorked is releasing theirs in the U.S., and they've always done such a great job with our films. And a ton of other films that we're fans of. So they're great people down there. We're really excited to be working with them on the U.S. release of this for sure.
And I mean, I'll tell you, like I said, it definitely, like now I want to go on a deep dive, not only after watching The Heretics, talking to you and you mentioning little bits and pieces about your other films. Like now I need to go a deep dive on your resume, because if any of them are even half as good as The Heretics, I think everyone would be pleasantly happy with that.
Can't wait to hear.
All right, so before I let you go officially, anywhere that people can find you or your work that you want to point them in the direction to?
BlackFawnFilms.com has all our films on it. BlackFawnDistribution.com is our distribution end in Canada. Uncork's website for The Heretics, and Facebook, Instagram, all that jazz. We love talking to people, horror conventions. We're always around.
Yeah. Do you guys come down to any of the horror conventions down in the States?
Not that many, just because we release in Canada. Okay. And we have partners that release in the U.S., so we try not to, go on each other's turf. It's So I mean, we're usually just across Canada. But we definitely we're talking about next year coming down to the U.S. just as kind of guests and stuff like that, and not with any products. So excited to do that.
Yes, I would. There's a couple big ones on the East Coast for sure, and I would when you guys come down to the ones that are in the East Coast here, I will definitely have to try to make it out there and physically say hello versus over email or over the phone. Chad, thank you for being on the show. It was a great conversation, and again, great movie. The Heretics is a must-watch, I think, for anyone that's out there listening.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you once again to Mr. Chad Archibald for coming on the show. I had a great conversation with him. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something about horror filmmaking, indie filmmaking. And it's definitely like talking to him and talking to other people like Casey Spivey and just being friendly with people like that. It has definitely made me want to create more. For sure. And re-listening to this interview has gotten me in the mood. Listen, I love this festival I'm putting together. We're 13 days away from it, and I don't want it to go away so quickly, because this has been a fun, fascinating part of my life, putting this big festival together. But I really can't wait to actually put this to bed, so that I can go back to focusing to other creative outlets. And we have a couple things coming down the pike, hopefully, but I can't wait to attack these things, and that's because of creative people like Chad and everyone else we talk to here on the show. So big thanks to Chad. Make sure you follow him on all his fun social medias and stuff. And this is me just kind of dragging it out as I find my Twitter application so that we can simply plug his his Twitter, Chad Archibald. Okay. Well, he is
I don't think that's him. That's a private account. We'll have his social medias in the show notes, so please check those out. Because I don't have it in front of me, but make sure you check out the Heretics on. It's available on demand and whatnot, and you can probably even order it. Just Google it, and you can order it on the media of your choice. It is very good. I can't I can't say enough how good that movie was. It was. I hate saying that it was a surprise hit for me because that makes it seem like I wasn't expecting much. I didn't know what I was expecting. It's a lot of what you're expecting and then nothing of what you're expecting all at the same time. Go watch it. It's worth your time. It's worth a watch. It's definitely something, and if you're the kind of person that likes to wait to Halloween to start watching your horror movies, the month of October, go ahead. But this is one you need to add to your list, at least for a one-time viewing. It was really good. Make sure you follow. I found it here. Follow Chad at Archibald_Chad on Twitter. You can also follow his company at Black Fawn Films, and check out his other movies like Bite, The DROWNSMAN, Neverlost, and just go to blackfawnfilms.com to find his whole setup there. What a great conversation with this guy, and I hope to have him on the show again, maybe when he's not secluded up in the woods of Canada, so we have a little bit better reception. As a reminder, make sure you check out festival.awesomepodcast.com for more details on the Everything is Awesome Headstrong Comedy Festival and Fundraiser. If you can't be in Philadelphia on January 27th from 12 to 9 p.m., guys, that's a 9-hour span of entertainment. I prefer you to be there at 4 p.m. If you have to pick a 1-hour slot, come down at 4 p.m. to Tattooed Moms and watch Everything is Awesome live. It'll be me and Mike playing some games. Abby Rosenquist will be there. We'll have another guest to announce very soon. But come on down to Tattooed Moms or to Milk Boy South Street or to South Street Cinema or to Thirsty Dice at 17th and Fairmont. Come to any of those venues, 4 p.m. at Tattooed Moms, please, and come support these podcasters, these comedians, and improvisers. And if you can, donate. We'll be collecting money while we're there. However, if you can't come down to Philadelphia, if you don't live in the area, and this is a podcast after all, maybe you're from Maine, you can't come down, or maybe you're from Texas, or maybe you're from LA, whatever, then you can still help support this fundraiser. No matter who you are, I assure you, you've been affected by cancer. I was affected by cancer indirectly, and I didn't know it for years. It hit close to home in 2016. In 2016, my uncle, who was much more like a brother to me, he's the guy who introduced me to Star Wars. He's the guy who introduced me to Kevin Smith, to Leisure Suit Larry. I was far too young for almost all those things when he introduced me to them. And he helped shape me who I became today. He was 16 years older than me. He passed away at the age of 47. Diagnosed January of 2016, passed away November 2016. And while it's a loss for us all, what always gets me, it's not the fact that I lost him, because I had 32 wonderful years with my uncle. Tons of stories that I could tell, that I will tell, that I have told. But he left behind his, at the time, 5-year-old son. His son's now 7. And that's something I'll never get over. That's the thing I can't get over, is that his son doesn't get to know who his father was. And that's tough. That's tough. And then very recently, in fact, a day or two after the anniversary of my uncle's passing, his 2-year mark, my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And then just before Thanksgiving, we found out that it was really bad, that it was stage 4. and that it's never going away. And there's treatments, and very positive we can keep it at bay, and it's just something he's going to live with till he's grows old and dies from old age, not the cancer. But, I went 34 years. No, I'm sorry. I went 32 years. Knowing that cancer was around and that it affected people that I knew. It's going to affect you one day. It's sad to say that, but I find it hard to believe that it's not going to affect somebody at some point in their life. The Headstrong Foundation, based out of here in Philadelphia, does some great work. They support families that need it. If it gets bad enough, there's a good chance you or your family member or your friend or whoever may come to the University of Pennsylvania. And it's families like that the Headstrong support financially with residential support and emotional support. So please consider donating. If you can't come to the show to donate, please donate today at bit.ly/headstrongfest. That's bit.ly/headstrongfest. We're already at 45% of our goal, $229 of $500. Help us get to $500 and beyond. I want to get as much money for the Headstrong Foundation as possible. They are a great organization, and I would love to be a great source of fundraising for them each and every year. So please, if you're in the Philadelphia area, come to the festival, festival.awesomepodcast.com for more details, bit.ly/headstrongfest. That's bit.ly/headstrongfest to donate today. And it just means a lot to me if you could donate to this cause.
We like to end Everything is Awesome with a call to action. Super friends, there are a lot of terrible things happening right now. It can feel like you can't do anything to help, but you can. It takes people like us to make a difference. One of the easiest and most effective ways to action is to call your representatives about issues that are important to you.
Issues like the government shutdown. That is still a thing. That's still happening. Nothing has changed since the 7th. We're still in a shutdown. Things are getting worse. The FDA isn't doing their solid checks on food now here in America, and that affects everybody. It doesn't affect just Americans. Other countries may have their own version of FDA that checks food for them, but the FDA checks when food gets exported and checks the food when it gets imported, and it makes sure everything is up to code. Air travel's not safe right now, guys. There's an agency that does final checks after the companies do their own checks. That's not getting done. Worse more, there's people working that have to work. TSA agents have to work, but they're not getting paid. A lot of government workers live paycheck to paycheck, just like everybody else does. All right, so this needs to stop. The government shutdown is ridiculous for a $5 billion wall that I think has been proven is infallible, even if we wanted it. So call your representatives to help shut down this government shutdown.
When I call my reps, I use a site called 5calls.org. That's the number 5calls.org. There, you'll find issue summaries for issues that are important to you, contact information for your representatives, and a script to read while you're on the phone to make sure your message gets across. Calling is quick, easy, and is one of the most effective ways to have your voice heard. Thank you to all of our supporters on patreon.com/thatentertains. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to bring this episode to you. If you want to support us in a non-monetary way, word-of-mouth recommendations and 5-star rating reviews on iTunes are the best way to spread the good word of awesome. You can find us on Facebook.com and Twitter @RealAwesomePod or @AwesomePodcast on Instagram. And we're available on awesomepodcast.com and thatentertains.com/network. Get news about Everything is Awesome from our website, social media accounts, and also on my personal Twitter @ThatNerdyKev. If you're interested in ad rates, live appearances, help with your podcast, or have a question or comment, email us at awesome@crudeHumorstudios.com. Everything is Awesome is a production of That's Entertainment Podcast Network in association with Crude Humor Studios. Crude Humor Studios is a Philadelphia-based production company specializing in audio, video, and live performances. You can find more info at crudehumorstudios.com. Thanks for listening, super friends. We've been awesome.
That's Entertainment Podcast Network. Entertainment and culture. Artist-owned, fan-supported.